Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Good to see you all. Tonight, we are continuing with our study of Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C.Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Tonight we'll continue with chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 4 is entitled Transcendental Knowledge, which is also known as Jnana Yoga. As we've mentioned previously, chapter 3 is called Karma Yoga, and karma means action. And Prabhupada, actually, the Acaryas, explain in their commentaries on Bhagavatam that the most prominent mode of material nature within the material world is Rajagun, or the mode of passion, which means that everyone in this material world is extremely active by nature. Everyone's very active. Everyone likes to do things. They like to be active. So the problem with the material world is that everyone is active, but they don't have proper spiritual knowledge or guidance. And without proper spiritual knowledge or guidance, you may act in this world, you can be active, but you won't know what to do, how to act properly in this world. And if you don't know how to act properly in this world, you'll make so many mistakes and your life will become problematic. You will suffer. I was reading that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita last night. Prabhupada was explaining that if we don't act properly in this world, it leads to suffering. Therefore, we have to learn to act properly in this world. So that is what Divya Gyan, or transcendental knowledge, is for, to teach us how to act properly in this world. So when you mix your karma or your activity with Divya Gyan, or transcendental knowledge, you act properly in this world. You act under guidance. So, continuing study of chapter 4 of questions or any comments as we go, then please. So this is a very famous verse. We'll start with a very famous verse. This particular verse, in my teaching and preaching of Krishna consciousness, I probably quote this particular verse more than any other verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I think. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Prita. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. So what Krishna is saying here in the Bhagavad Gita is, I will reciprocate with you according to how much effort you put into the relationship. Because Krishna is a person, God is a person. The nature of people is that they reciprocate according to the affection that they receive from others. If you receive affection from others, you are also very inclined to be affectionate. If you're not receiving affection from others, it's harder to give unconditionally, to give affection. But when you're receiving affection, and Krishna feels like this, Krishna is a person, and he feels that because he is receiving affection from his devotees, he is naturally inclined to reciprocate. That being a person. If someone does something nice for you, if you're a good person, a gracious person, and someone does something nice for you, it's natural for you to reciprocate, to want to do something in return. So Krishna is saying here in the Bhagavad Gita that if you surrender unto me, I will reward you accordingly. So if we fully surrender to Krishna, Krishna will give himself to us. If we only partially surrender to Krishna, which is what most of us are doing, Krishna will partially reveal himself to us. Then, in the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. So in other words, we can only fully realize Krishna when we fully surrender. A pure devotee is one who fully surrenders to Krishna, gives everything to Krishna. So when we get to that platform where we give everything to Krishna unconditionally, then Krishna will fully reveal himself to us. Right? So someone like Arjuna is fully surrendering to Krishna. So Krishna fully reveals himself. Right? He fully reciprocates. So this is the type of interactions that we have with God as a person. God is a person, and he has his way of reciprocating with others. And he says, if you surrender to me, I will reward you. Right? If you act neutral towards Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate. He will be neutral towards you. If you act inimically towards Krishna, Krishna will punish you. If you act favorably towards Krishna with bhakti or devotion, Krishna will reciprocate. He'll give himself to you ultimately. So that's why Krishna is saying, as you surrender, I will reward you accordingly. Then Prabhupada says in the purport, in the transcendental world, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there. So Krishna is saying that if the devotee reaches an advanced level, a purified level of bhakti, where the devotee comes to the platform of asakti, bhava, and then prema, which are the final stages of bhakti. When a devotee gets to that level, then he will begin to reciprocate with Krishna in terms of his swarupa, in terms of his eternal relationship with Krishna. So that will be his meditation. According to his eternal relationship with Krishna, he'll begin to serve Krishna in that mood, either as a friend, as a parent, or as a lover. And then Krishna will reciprocate according to the devotee's bhav, or the devotee's mood of service. So when the devotee gets to the platform where they begin to serve Krishna according to that particular mood, Krishna will reciprocate with that. Then Prabhupada says in the purport that everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone, and all spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Unless one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect. So regardless of which path you are following, if you're an impersonalist or a jnani or a yogi or a kami, right? You are you will only be successful if Krishna reciprocates. Right? If Krishna decides that he wants to reciprocate, then you will be successful. Right? If Krishna does not reciprocate, you will not be successful. Right? So we have to understand that is Krishna's position. Krishna is on the platform where he will reciprocate with everyone. He will allow them to be successful in their endeavor, regardless of what their motive is or what type of endeavor they have. Whether one's a kami, a yogi, a jnani, a tapasvi, no matter what he is, as the super soul, reciprocate, one cannot be successful in that path. And the same is true of a devotee. A devotee will only become perfect when Krishna fully reciprocates and gives fully his mercy. Then you will become self-realized. Then you will become fully Krishna conscious. But it requires Krishna's reciprocation. Okay. Text number 12. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. So Krishna is further elaborating upon the previous verse. As you surrender, I reward you. So if you want to worship demigods, ultimately it's Krishna who has to empower the demigods to reciprocate with you. So ultimately everything comes from Krishna. Any success we have in life, ultimately that comes from Krishna's sanction. So Prabhupada says in the purport that foolish people worship the demigods, but do not know that results so obtained are temporary. Intelligent persons in Krishna consciousness do not need to worship the demigods. So the Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us that if you worship the root of the tree, the entire tree becomes nourished. If you go around and worship just the individual leaves of the tree, because you're not worshiping the root, there's some benefit, but the entire tree does not become fully nourished. Right? That's the nature of this world. Right? You won't get full nourishment. So a devotee understands this principle. Right? We understand that if you simply worship Krishna, the Supreme Lord, it is not necessary to worship all the demigods, or any demigod for that matter, right? Because when you worship the root of the tree, everyone else is satisfied. If you worship Krishna, the devatas, the demigods are satisfied. So there's no need to do separate worship. And then Prabhupada says in the purport that anyone who thinks God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist or Pashandi. Krishna does not belong to this world. So some people think like this. They think that you can worship any devata and you'll get the same result. In Sado spiritual circles, people think like this. Right? People think that I can worship any demigod and I will get the same benefit. But that's illogical. That's an impersonalistic philosophy, and it's actually illogical. That's like saying, I can drive on any road in Australia and it will take me to Darwin. Right? That's not true. Not every road will take you to Darwin. But people say like that. They have this sentimental understanding of spirituality. And because of that, they think that wherever they go or whoever they worship, they will get the same results. But factually, that is not true. You won't get the same result just by worshipping any devata, any demigod. So, Krishna, it is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita that we should focus our worship on the Supreme Personality. And by doing that, you will get the supreme benefit, the Param Gati. The supreme destination will be attained. So actually, the second offense against the holy name, when we, after Mangalati in the morning, we chant the 10 offenses against the holy name. And then we always say that it is an offense to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. In other words, it's an offense to think that the demigods and Krishna are equal and you will get the same benefit. It's not factual, and it's not Vedic, and it's not the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have to, Prabhupada wanted us to become learned so that we can convince people of the correct understanding of the Krishna conscious philosophy, because people are very sentimental in their understanding of the philosophy. Any points? Text number 13. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So, this is an important point. Krishna is now speaking about Varna and Ashram. This is another important verse from the Bhagavad Gita. The significance of Varna and Ashram. So Prabhupada says in the purport, he says, Krishna is the creator of everything, including Varna, Ashram, Dharma. As Krishna is transcendental to Varnashrama, a Krishna conscious person is also transcendental to Varnashrama. So Varnashram is important because, as we explained, chapter 3 describes karma yoga, which means working in Krishna consciousness. All of us are active in this world. Right? We're very active people. And jnana means acting with knowledge. So Varnashram is action governed by Vedic knowledge. In other words, it teaches you how to live in this world in a spiritual way, right? In a way that you become materially satisfied according to your material conditioning, and you can gradually advance in your Krishna consciousness. That's the purpose of Varnashram. Samsiddhim haritoshanam. It is meant to please Krishna. That is the purpose of the Varnashram system. Prabhupada explains in the purport that if you're a pure devotee and you do not identify with your body and your mind and your ego, you don't have to follow varnashram. But for those of us who are not yet purified of our material attachment, we follow the varnashram system to some degree. Like we have an ashram. All of us are in Grihastha ashram. We're all in a married relationship, right? And we're progressing gradually in spiritual life based on working within that situation. So this is called Van Ashram Dharma. Van Ashram Dharma, which means we understand that we are conditioned and we understand we have material desires, but we control the material desires and we dovetail them in the service of Krishna. Right? That is Varnashram Dharma. It's like Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes, it's like a safety net that when you're walking on a tightrope, sometimes you might fall off. And that might happen, we're walking and then we fall. So the safety net is Varnashram, because we're not pure yet, and we may fall down from the platform of, spiritual consciousness. Varnashram supports us so that we don't fall and hurt ourselves. It gives us support. So we don't follow so much in Kali Yuga. We don't follow so much the Varnas. In other words, we don't designate ourselves so much as Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmana. To some degree it's there, but with the ashrams, we do identify more. There's more identification with the ashrams. Like, as I said, all of us are considered to be grihastas, right? And then there's brahmacharis, and then there's sannyasis and vanaprasthas. And by following varnashram, the ashrams, you gradually make spiritual advancement. Because in the ashrams, you have to follow rules and regulations, and those rules and regulations keep you balanced, right? And they keep you regulated, which is important, because we all have material desires, but we have to regulate the material desires. Just like everyone in the material world is attached to sex life. Okay, you're attached to sex life. But to become purified of sex desire, you engage in sex life within in the Grihastha ashram with your partner, and you have children generally. And when you have children, you become purified of your material desires, right? Because you try to bring the children up in Krishna consciousness. So that's the basic principle of Varnashram. It's acting with knowledge. Prabhupada then says, to elevate men from the animal status, Varnashram is created by Krishna for the systematic development of Krishna consciousness. The tendency of a particular man towards work is determined by the modes of material nature. A person in Krishna consciousness, a Vaishnava, is above even the Brahmanas. So, once again, if you're fully surrendered to Krishna, there's no need to follow the Varnashram system. But if you're still affected by the three modes of material nature, we act in the Varnashram system to gradually purify our consciousness. Okay. Text number 14. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So Prabhupada comments in the purport that anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma or fruitive activities does not become affected by the results of his activities. In other words, the person who understands this transcendental nature of Krishna is never subjected to the laws of karma. So, the laws of karma are intricate, as Prabhupada explains within the purport. But when one understands, and this is explained in Bhagavad Gita, there are three types of karma. There is karma, vikarma, and akarma. Akarma means it refers to devotional service. Akarma means without karma. You're doing action, you're working in this world, you're active, but because you're dedicating the activities for the pleasure of Krishna, then whatever action you perform, you do not receive a material reaction, a karmic reaction. The reaction you get, or the reciprocation you get, is from Krishna himself. Therefore, you practice akarma, and you become free from the effects of the modes of nature, and you become fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So, Prabhupada further says in the purport, although Krishna is the creator of the material world, he is not affected by the activities of the material world. The living entities are entangled in the fruitive results of material activities because of their propensity for lording it over material resources. These activities are not ordained by the Lord. This is how we become free from karma. We understand that an example is bhoga or foodstuff. All of us have to eat to survive. But we all know that if you eat the food without first offering it to Krishna, you become contaminated by pap, by sin. Sava kilbishai, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, it is reactive, it is sinful. You will get reactions. You'll become contaminated. So we have to become very careful. So a devotee has knowledge, so he understands, I don't want to eat the food which is not offered first to Krishna, because otherwise I won't get purified and I will be receiving sinful reactions. Prabhupada then says, Krishna being full in himself has no attraction for so-called sense gratification. He is aloof from the material activities and reactions. So Krishna, when he comes to this world, he may appear to be acting like an ordinary person, but there is nothing ordinary about his activities because he is not affected by material desires. He doesn't have material desires. He has spiritual desires. So when Krishna acts in this world, he's fulfilling his spiritual desires. He's not affected by material desires. Okay. Text number 15. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. So Krishna mentions this in the previous chapter and this chapter as well. Prabhupada says in the purport, to retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. there's a problem with being inactive, like just meditating or just studying or, not engaging in service. There's a problem with it because as long as you're affected by the modes of material nature, it'll be very hard for your mind not to contemplate sense gratification. Right? It'll be very difficult. So therefore, you have to focus. And by focusing, in Krishna consciousness, the Bhagavad Gita ultimately teaches the active path. This is asked by Arjuna later in the Bhagavad Gita. Which path should we perform, the inactive path or the active path? Krishna says the active path is better for most devotees, because some devotees may be able to just sit and study all day or chant all day, not do a lot of outer service, just be very internal in their cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Most of us can't do that. We're not purified enough to do that. Prabhupada then says in the purport, there are two classes of men. Some are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both. So if you're already very advanced and and you're liberated, you don't have material desires, you should engage in Krishna consciousness. Akama sava kama va moksha kama udaradi. Bhagavatam says, whether you have material desires or no material desires, or you desire liberation, whatever it is, you should engage in Krishna's service. You should engage in Krishna conscious activity. That will be the most beneficial thing for you. So that is the recommendation of the Bhagavatam. Okay, text number 16. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Prabhupada explains in the purport, action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. So it might be hard for us to understand how to act in this world, how to become liberated or free from the cycle of birth and death, to become purified, to fully engage ourselves in Krishna's service. So as Prabhupada is pointing out, and as Krishna points out, we need to see the examples of previous bona fide devotees, like Prabhupada himself, like our gurus within ISKCON, like the previous acharyas, the Goswamis, the Panchatattva, the associates of Lord Chaitanya, the associates of Lord Krishna, right? By seeing their example, we understand how to act in this world and how to become purified. Then Prabhupada says, otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord, anyone who follows in the footsteps of previous authorities is certainly not bewildered. So that's why we have gurus, that's why we have acharyas who teach us how to serve Krishna. We follow their example, right? And by following the example of the great devotees, we become purified in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada then says in the purport, one cannot ascertain the ways of religion by jnana. The principles of religion can only be laid down by Krishna himself. Action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. Dharman tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam. It says within the 6th canto of Bhagavatam that ultimately Dharma comes from Krishna. Ultimately, religious instructions, spiritual instructions come from Krishna. That's what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching. It's the song of God. Krishna himself is giving spiritual instructions. And they are then passed on by Mahajanas. Bhagavatam says there are 12 Mahajanas, great authorities that Vedic knowledge comes from. Right? Brahma, Shiva, the Kumaras, Kapiladev, Prahlad, Janak, Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, right? Yamaraj, right? And there are 2 more who are not Manu, and 1 more who is not coming to my mind right now. But these are the Mahajanas, right? These great teachers, right, are teaching us how to serve Krishna. They give us spiritual knowledge. They give us Krishna's teachings in a purified form. Text number 17. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Prabhupada says in the purport, if one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand what karma, akarma, and vikarma is. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. So Bhagavad Gita is teaching us about these different types of action. Karma. Karma means authorized activity. Not spiritual activity, but authorized activity. Following the Varnashram system, following the Vedic system, the Manu Samhita and so forth. This is karma. Karma means authorized action. You're in this world. You have to act within parameters. You have to act under authority. Then there is vikarma. Vikarma means defying the injunctions of the Shastra, the scriptures, and acting whimsically of your own accord. This is called vikarma. And that negative action, when you reject scriptural injunction and you act independently, you receive negative reactions for that. So it's something that devotees avoid. We avoid vikarma. We even avoid karma, material activities. And devotees, we engage in akarma. Akarma means activities meant for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. That is akarma, or spiritual activities. So a devotee has to learn the intricacies so he knows. I have to avoid this, I have to accept this so that I can once again serve Krishna. Then Prabhupada says, any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikarmas, or prohibited actions. So devotees are very careful not to perform sinful activities. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. And he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So sometimes devotees, they get confused when they read this verse. Prabhupada says in the purport, and a devotee is intelligent in human society. He knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of Krishna. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness. Those engaged in the process are without desire for personal sense gratification. So, what is inaction in action? That means you're doing something, but you're not receiving a result. That is called devotional service. It's called akarma. It's called bhakti yoga. And what is action in inaction? Right? You may be trying to avoid creating karma in this world, but if you're not a devotee of Krishna, you will be accruing some karma. So even though right, you're acting, but still it's not being offered to Krishna, and you're not getting purified of the reactions. So this is a science, and we have to learn this from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to understand it properly. Text number 19. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. In the purport, Prabhupada says, because a Krishna conscious person is devoid of sense gratificatory propensities, he has burned up the reactions of work by perfect knowledge of his position as servant of Krishna. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. So this is the test for all of us, right? If we lose our material desires and our desire to perform sense gratificatory activities, we become purified. We become liberated. We become Krishna conscious. You know when you're advancing, you know you are advancing in Krishna consciousness when your material desires are becoming less and your desire to serve Guru and Krishna and the devotees is becoming stronger. All right? That's the sign that you're advancing in your Krishna consciousness. Text number 20. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Prabhupada says in the purport that freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness, when one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for Krishna, and therefore has no attraction for the results of the action. This is the sign of akarma. Any other action is vikarma. So Prabhupada and Krishna are explaining the same point again and again. When one's advanced in Krishna consciousness, he abandons material activities. He has no interest to perform material activities. He just wants to please Krishna. He just wants to serve Krishna. Text number 21. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So Krishna is giving symptoms of someone who has self-realized consciousness, who is atmakya, or understands his spiritual nature. They give up all, well, it says, first of all, his mind and intelligence are perfectly controlled, right? The mind does not give you problems. Sometimes devotees, their minds give them so many problems, but when you become advanced in Krishna consciousness, the mind does not give you problems because you're absorbed in service to Krishna. And then secondly, you give up proprietorship, or the sense of proprietorship, for material things. You lose your attachment to material things. You become more satisfied in serving Krishna. And then finally, it says, you only act for the bare necessities of life. You're advancing in Krishna consciousness when your material desires and even your material possessions are reducing. Right? If you're accumulating more and more material things, then that's not necessarily a symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Someone who's advanced, they become more and more detached and more renounced. Text number 22. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. So this is a further symptoms of someone who's self-realized. It says, they are satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. The 11th canto of Bhagavad Gita says that a devotee is like a python. A python doesn't look for prey. He just sits in one place, waits for whatever comes, and then he accepts it. Then he eats. A devotee is said to be like that because he doesn't over-endeavor for material things. Then Krishna says he's free from duality. So you're advancing when you're free from duality, and envy. These are very powerful points. We know we're advancing when we're free from envy and duality. And we're steady in success and failure. That's not easy. It's not easy to be steady and keep serving Krishna in success and failure. Right? It can be difficult. But Krishna is saying this is the symptom of one who is self-realized. And now, text 23, this will be the last verse for tonight. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Prabhupada explains in the purport, becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from dualities and the modes. Whatever he does for Krishna. All his works are sacrifices because they aim at satisfying Krishna. The results merge into transcendence and one does not suffer material effects. So we know we're advancing in Krishna consciousness when we're not affected by the three modes of material nature, right? And if we're not affected by the three modes of material nature, especially passion and ignorance, our material desires will reduce and it'll be much easier for us to advance in Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop here for tonight. Does anyone have any questions or comments on anything that we've discussed? Okay, thank you all for coming. We'll see you next week. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you,
Hare
Babu.
Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Haribol.